What is good, everybody? Gamer Critic here with yet another Why I'm Buying. And today's game is the anticipated Capcom sequel that is Dragons Dogma II. So Dragons Dogma II is a single-player narrative-driven action RPG, releasing on March 22nd, 2024, and releasing on PlayStation 5, Windows, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Before I go any further, it is worth noting I know very little about the first Dragon's Dogma. I think I played maybe 5-6 hours, and then after that I put it down. But Dragon's Dogma 2 is a game that just gets better and better the more I see it, to the point that it's become one of my most anticipated games of this year. I remember when we first saw it, I wasn't entirely impressed. I mean, it looked cool, but I just knew nothing about Dragon's Dogma, so it was hard for me to get excited. But then we saw more of the trailers, more of the combat, more of this pawn system, and more of what they're doing with this open world is when I started to realize this is a me game if I ever saw one. Now, I also don't know much about the story, and frankly, there isn't much of the story to know. I more just mean that the story has been kept kind of under wraps, so we don't really know like in much detail what the plot is gonna be. All I know is that an evil dragon comes down, tears out someone's heart, that person becomes an Arisen, and now the Arisen has to go on a grand adventure with a bunch of companions and pawns to find the dragon, slay the dragon, and get its heart back. I'll be honest, the main plot of this game isn't necessarily what's driving me to go play it. I am not necessarily here to talk about the story. I want to talk about two things: the open world and its combat. So the open world is reportedly 4 times larger than the first game. And the trailers are really showing off that this is going to be a place with a wealth of diverse locations to explore. But it gets even better, because see, Dragon's Dogma 2 sets itself apart from other RPGs because Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to have little to no quest markers. Dragon's Dogma 2 is prioritizing an emphasis on organic discovery. That means no hint, no little waypoints. The game is going to encourage you to use your observation, talking to NPCs, and following clues to find your point of interest. That is going to make the exploration in this game not only insanely natural, but I would argue way more rewarding. Like you are truly exploring what Dragon's Dogma 2 has to offer. And you may be thinking, what's the big deal? I can fast travel to some of these places. Wrong! Fast travel in Dragon's Dogma 2 is also extremely limited. Again, Dragon's Dogma 2 really wanted to emphasize the discovery and the adventure. In this game, you are primarily either traveling on foot or by renting out carriages, which will force you to slow down and truly appreciate and soak in the atmosphere of the world. And that is really important because this world is extremely unpredictable. You can be walking in a random direction, and you might stumble upon random events like ambushes of enemy factions, or even encounter unique creatures that can't be found anywhere else. But that right there is also the sense of freedom and discovery that I go nuts for. It really sounds like Dragon's Dogma 2 is taking a page out of like Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom. This is the type of game where you can just walk in any which direction and discover something incredible, or maybe not. But that's okay, because if you do find something incredible, you'll know that you found it based off your own discovery. But the open world isn't the only thing that has my attention. It's also the combat. It's going to offer a diverse selection of weapons, from swords and axes for close quarters combat to bows and staves for ranged attacks. I personally think I'm going to go with something more like swords or knives to get in there close. But it seems like you can tailor your character's fighting style by mastering these different weapons. And it goes even deeper after you pick your weapon with the vocation system. So the vocation system is essentially the class system. So you have multiple different classes that you can pick from, each with unique strengths, weaknesses, and skill sets. Like, for example, a fighter might excel at wielding really heavy weapons and can take a lot of punishment, while a mage may be a little more fragile but can focus on unleashing powerful ranged spells. And you can switch between these vocations throughout the game, which will allow you to experiment and find a playstyle that suits you. But what I find really interesting about the combat is just how much influence it can have based on the environment around you. It's becoming really clear that Dragons Dogma 2 is not going to be an easy game. Even the smaller scale enemies have been seen and kind of told to us that they can take a lot of punishment. And if they can take a lot of punishment, then imagine the boss encounters. But I like that you have other things to rely on other than yourself. The environment is a very powerful tool in combat. You can strategically use the terrain to your advantage, luring enemies into traps, or even using environmental hazards to deal damage. You can knock a giant enemy off of a cliff and jump down, and then jump down to finish the job. So you have the environment, and you have arguably the most popular part of Dragons Dogma 2, the pawns. So the pawns are multifaceted companions that are going to serve a very vital role in this adventure. Pawns in this game can be a valuable source of information and guidance. They might point out hidden areas, comment on points of interest, even offer strategic advice during combat encounters. The pawns are clearly not supposed to be just like mindless companion characters. No, these are advanced AI characters that allow them to adapt to situations and even learn from their own experiences. Like a pawn who frequently heals allies might become more adept at healing magic. So not only can you create your own pawns, not only are those pawns going to be extremely helpful, but Capcom is actually using them in a way where you can hire new ones that were created by other players. All the pawns come from another world called the Rift, a mystical realm that is connected to the world. So essentially, Dragons Dogma 2 will allow you to not only let players use your pawn, but you can hire and rent out pawns that were created by other players to help you on your own adventure. It's going to add a level of player interaction and collaboration that even I wasn't really expecting. And if your pawn, if it's sought after enough by other players, you could potentially even earn in-game benefits. Between the open world and the combat, already those are two reasons to get really excited. But the pawn system, I think, besides both of those, is the thing that's interesting the most. It's not really the thing I'm the most excited for, but it's the thing that has my attention the most. I'm really interested to see how they are going to make the pawn system work and how it's going to handle in the game. So to wrap it up, Dragons Dogma 2 I think looks really cool. It almost makes me upset that I never got to finishing the first one, but looks like Dragons Dogma 2 is just going to be a bigger and better version of the first one in every way. Looks like it's going to be bigger in its open world, more dynamic, bigger emphasis on player choice in both exploration and combat, a really interesting and more in-depth view on the pawns. It really just looks like the type of game that is reminiscent of, like I said, Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, the type of game that just drops you into the map and just tells you to go forth and explore. And admittedly, are some of my favorite games of all time and one of my favorite game genres of all time. And if Dragons Dogma 2 manages to hit the nail on the head, then Dragons Dogma 2 might just be able to stand alongside with those games. And that's why I'm buying Dragons Dogma 2. Thank you so much for watching. Are you going to buy Dragons Dogma 2? If not, I get it, because there's a lot of games out there right now to buy. There's Rise of the Ronin and Princess Peach releasing on the same day, so I get it. But if you are buying Dragons Dogma 2, let me know in the comments why. I know what I said. I know I said the review was coming first. Yeah, change of plans. So the review is coming after this. Truly, this time. I mean it. Like, I really mean it. The review is halfway done. I'm gonna put the review out hopefully by next week. It's coming. It's almost done. Be sure to follow my Instagram. It's @thegamercritic. Helps a ton. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It also helps a ton. Be good people, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, peace.